This is my Target arcade, if you will. If you want to know how to make one of these, just go back about 5 or 6 videos. I think we've got about 130 now. On the back, you can see the handles here, is a hand cart. So this is movable. And I do move it around at different ranges and different target practices. What are we doing today? Well, Dr. Paula and I are getting ready to go hunting. So I'm just zeroing in some last minute rifles. And you're going to see us shoot 3 Avenger rifles. I think 2 in 25 caliber and 1 in 22. I think there's a 17 as well. But they all have regulators. In my book, that's the most important factor. What have we got up here? Well, these are 1 liter bottles. I've shot before 2 liter, but we got these, I think from Umarex. They were red at one time, but you put some powder in, baby powder, rubbing powder, whatever, and then one of their caps, and you blow these things up. The 2 liter, about 100 pounds, I think, and then these are about 75. And when they're hit, they're supposed to make a nice bang and a big white explosion. We'll find out if that's still the case today. Since we're breaking in 3 rifles, I thought we'd shoot at 3 of these. Well, let's go up and start our shooting. Before you go on any hunt, you need to pack a backpack or a suitcase or something before you go to make sure you've got everything. Having a good list is part of it. I've got a good list over here on the table, and we'll be there in just a minute. But even before that, we want to make sure that we take the best rifle, probably a second one, just in case something goes wrong with the first ones. I've done that all my life. And typically, I like to go with the longest barrel. In firearms, that's the best accuracy. But something I've found true of airguns too. You certainly see it in the accuracy of a pistol versus a rifle. Now I'll have some of you write and say, oh, my gun's got a 10-inch barrel and it's accurate, perfect. And then I'll say, but at what range? And that's where we get the reporting's a little different. Not long ago, I was sharing some of the humor that some of my good friends have shared with me, and you've asked for more, so let me just share some wisdom humor. There was a gentleman named Texas Gillian, and he was a 19th century American businessman. So this wisdom comes from far back, but he said, a politician is a fellow who will lay down your life for his country. And Doug Larson was a long distance runner, even won some gold medals for running. But he said, instead of giving the politicians the keys to the cities, it might be a good idea just to change the locks. I'd have to agree with that one. And Will Rogers, I think you know Will Rogers. He shared a lot of humor with us. A statesman who walked around, and one of his famous was, I don't make up any jokes. I just watch the government and report the facts. Well, I hope you like that humor. Let's see what these 3 air guns, all by Avenger. This is the Bullpup. It's the newest gun that they put out. I think they're putting out a Woodstock version now. This is the original rifle, long barrel, and both of these are in 25 caliber, and this one here's in 22. They all use a magazine much like this. I like to take a pen, an ink pen, and put on the back just exactly, because you get a lot of magazines. If you collect a lot of guns, you get a lot of magazines. Now you can also just put in one of these single shots, and that way you're guaranteed that the pellet, the bullet, is it's not going to get the back bent up putting it in, shoving it in. Your thumb just puts one in carefully. The magazines have been known. I've got a little trick up my sleeve that have stopped any magazine damage. I'll share that in another video. Okay, well, let's see how these do with those bottles of air down there. Okay, the first air gun I'm going to shoot here is this Avenger bullpup in 25 caliber. We're shooting at about 30 yards, and this is where I shoot a lot of the small game, from squirrels to raccoons to possum. Well, a good hit didn't explode that bottle like a .357 does. Okay, this next one again is an Avenger 25 caliber, but I wanted you to see something about these regulators. Right over here, you'll see that this gun is holding 4,000, I think it holds 4,500 pounds of air pressure. But that's what it's holding. What does it shoot uniformly? Just a hair under 3,000. It's about 2,700 is where I found this to be the most accurate. So each shot has that amount of air pressure, and it'll continue that until the tube on the front falls down below that amount. We've got a safety right here and a red dot that shows once the gun is armed and dangerous, if you will. Okay, let's go for the second bottle, the one in the middle. Well, I did hit it, but it must have leaked the air. Now the third gun I'm shooting here, very deadly on squirrels particularly, but I've written back here on the stock that this is Avenger. It's 22 caliber, and all the air guns I have, more than half, have regulators. I want you to see over here. Well, let's flip the gun first. Here I've got just under 4,000 pounds of air in the gun, and I found the best accuracy at about 2,500. Well, let's just see how accurate it is. Well, that was a little poetic justice there. Here's the smaller caliber 22, and I shoot that third bottle, and it's the one that's holding that air the best, and it made one heck of an explosion and threw powder everywhere. That's what was supposed to happen with all of them, but I've told you from the beginning, this 22 is a very fine gun. Now this is what those Humorex explosive bottles look like, and you put it onto any pop bottle, 2 liter, 1 liter, and then you can use any pump, a hand pump. In this case, I use this, it's a Ryobi, but that's not important. It's an electric battery pump, and what happens is, this basketball needle, football needle, goes in and on the inside of the bottle pumps it up. I put Dawn detergent in one bottle and bubbles floated down. Okay, we're going hunting, and I take a lot of stuff. I like a seat that can turn. Keeping in mind that you've got to really watch what this wind is doing, And as a low or high goes by, that can change the wind. Now sometimes it just means you're looking this way on your seat, and in the afternoon you're looking this way. That's happened to me more than half the time. Other times I've got to move. So you need a second or third place to hunt from. And you need a good backpack to get back there to wherever it is that you hunt, made out of a good, I used to call this 900 count Cordura. I'm not sure what it is today, but a good pack, a lot of bags on it, so I know when I need my binoculars, I know just where to go. Well, let's take a look at everything. Well, Dr. Paula and I are getting ready for a hunting trip, and this is the first week of October, so you may be doing the same thing. October is often arrows, bow and arrows, crossbows, and then as we get into November, we get the rifle. And depending upon the laws of your state, you got to find out when air guns are allowed and what calibers for what animals. This happens to be an Avenger. The one on the table in front of me here is an Avenger. But one's a bullpup. And then this is the rifle with the long barrel. And it also has a suppressor. And I do believe in being silent. And we've got a table of things here ready to pack up. Where would we put them? I've got a great backpack here that has a number of pouches and side pouches for all that stuff. And I think I got this from CB Life. I think it was $42, but if you'll recall, you get 15% discount. So that's like $6 off. So it was like 42 minus 6 is around $36. And this is heavy duty. So I like it. And I use it. Okay, where do we start? Well, let me just tell you, I start by reading, and I want to know my tracks. I was just recently reading an article on a chapter on how do you tell a snake hole from a gopher hole, from a woodchuck hole, rabbit hole, and squirrel hole. They go into all of them, and there are ways to do it. I'll cover that in another program, but it's awfully good if you're going to be out in the good old outdoors, you know something about tracks. It's an old book. You'll find a bunch on this topic, but it's all about hunting. So whether you're going to hunt pheasants or ducks or geese or squirrels or whatever, this tells an awful lot of the old school stuff, which I like. I had the chance to get up on Admiralty Island for a grizzly. I got a grizzly, and what a hunt that was. But I read before I went. There aren't any wolves right here in our county. You may have wolves in your county. We do have coyotes, young brother to these. But if you're up north and if you're in an area that wolves are legal, you may want to read this. Montana and Wyoming I hunt in, and there's a lot of wolves there. And you don't want to be attacked by a wolf and not know how to handle it. So there you go. Let's stay on this subject about getting as much information before we go hunting. Reading. One of the areas is these trail cams. Oh my goodness, how much help these provide. I've got 8 of them. I don't think I paid over $35 for one. I mean, these things can run $200. You can use them in hunting, and you need to know where these animals are tracking, because during the day you want to hunt at one location and then you want to hunt at another. Why? And the answer is, as these lows or these highs come through, you've got to be very careful about the scent and which way the direction is, and you want to be hunting downwind, not upwind, or you're going to lose and not harvest anything. So I have one place substantiated by trail cameras that when the wind is this way, I'm there, and later in the day when it's going the other way, I'm over here. Might be overlooking the same field, the same area, the same backyard, but I know where to be when the wind is doing its thing. Trail cameras are pretty easy. You can use them all year long. It's just not the 2 weeks of hunting season and maybe 2 weeks before. I've got a friend who puts these on the back of his pickup truck, and he wants to know if anybody is poking around there at night for the tools. I have them around the house here. You'd be surprised at what I've filmed, not just animals but people too. And I'll do a video on that one day, but it's good to know what's going on out there, because these do shoot at night, and it's a pretty simple method to come in here. There's also a simple method of loading in the batteries, usually 6 to 8 AA batteries, last several months depending on how much critters come by. I think an important thing, it's not here today, but it's the SD card. Sometimes these cameras have them, sometimes they don't. Obviously, the higher the SD card, the more pictures or longer videos it can take. And a lot of them, the really old ones take 20 SD cards, and I think the majority today are around 35. But I've got one that's a Browning that's, I don't know, 256, I think. So that's important. So trail cameras to be used 52 weeks of the year. One for security, knowledge what's going on here, and the other is to what's going on during the hunt season. Okay, let's remember this on eyes and vision. I'll show you a picture soon of some eye makeup. But if you and I were out in the woods and I said, over here, you'd look, but you're looking for my eyes. And people put all this grease on them, and it's not on the eyes. Their eyes are looking right forward, and you see the eyes. Well, so do animals. And so you want some makeup that destroys or deflects the eyes here so that you can be looking. I can tell you that mountain lions, bobcats are up in trees and they're looking, and that's what I see first, are those eyes. So you want to be able to catch those eyes. Also, when you're making any calling to them, and it's fun. It's when they go quack, 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 and you can talk to these animals, and they swing through the air and come back. That's a thrill for me. But a couple of things, you want to be real careful if you're going to rattle some horns. You know, again, that's making a noise. It's shouting out to the animals, and the animals look back at you. So I think the biggest mistake made with calls, any kind of call, is that you're making it, and you're making it in a straight line to the critter. So it's kind of good to kind of go around on the other side of the tree and make the noise, talk, or have a buddy who's over 35 yards away and they're doing the calling. Or one of the things I have is a remote control caller, and I don't know, 100, 200 animals. All kinds of distress call, sex call, food call of these critters to find out what they're really interested in. And you put the speaker someplace, and you and the remote are another place. Okay, Not only am I concerned about the animal seeing me when I hunt, but how about me seeing the animal? Well, there's all kinds of scopes out there. There's long ones. There's short ones, particularly if you have a break barrel rifle, you may want a shorter one. But I have been so disappointed in any cheap scope that comes with a rifle. All these long little tiny ones come out with firearms. Often a 17 caliber under $100 will have a cheap scope on it. But when you buy a good scope, it's a scope you're going to use the rest of your life. You're going to mount it to different guns. You might sell a gun, you might blow a gun, whatever. But these scopes we keep once you get a good scope. Let me just tell you about some of the parts. Back here in the back, we often find out what the power. This is 6 by 24. And then that third number is how big this end down here is. What they call the objective lens. It's the focus end. This is the objective lens. And some of them have an adjustment out here for this objective lens. Why? Well, if you're into some real tight accuracy, you're going to find out that the yardage to the target there can be a slight distortion in the best of scopes. So the best of scopes will have this objective lens that goes clear out to whatever the range is, and make an adjustment for that variance, if you will. Then it's kind of nice to have these pop-up lids in case it's raining. Another issue is as you're bringing the gun up, it's very easy to breathe from your nose or your mouth right in and fog that lens, and it doesn't unfog easily. And then you pop the front one too. It's all pretty quiet, and it works. A lot of people write to me and say, well, where do you get your scopes? And I've gotten them from lots of places. I've got them, believe it or not, I like to buy refurbished scopes. They have just as much a warranty. They've been worked on twice, and once when they were built, and now a second time. Excuse me. And the whole thing is about money. If I buy a scope for half the price because it's restored, I can buy twice as many scopes. My all-time favorite scope, excuse me, is this one here. Another CV Life scope. This one is 4 by 16 with a 50 millimeter lens at this end. I think the biggest I've seen is 60. Maybe there's something bigger out there. But this scope's about $100, and if you get it through CV Life, it's 15% off of that if you put Russ 15 on your order form. But here's a laser, and here's a red dot, and the scope. All of the above is on this, plus Picatinny rails on 3 sides that allow you to even mount something else on it if you so desire. Back here is one of these nickel-sized hearing aid batteries right in there. And what does that do? Well, that makes a beautiful image when you look through, particularly in early morning and late night. That's when the big trophies are moving, and it lights up the crosshairs. It lights up any other information that's in there. One of these nickel-sized hearing aid batteries in there. So that's good. This is a very nice scope. It might be $60, $70. I'll get into that catalog soon. I've ordered from Field Supply. I've ordered from Crossman. I've ordered from Hatson. You can get restored scopes from all those places, but here's brand new from my current favorite, CV Life, and that brand new one is cheaper still. Okay, now that we can see, we want to stay as steady as we can. If you'll remember, on a previous video, I had this tripod, And I wanted it to do what the really expensive match grade tripods do. So I took a Dremel tool and I ground some holes so that this could be set at a variety of locations. I think this was $50–$60. We'll see in a minute. But I made the adjustment so that it does the movement of a $300 one. Now, let me just show the 300. I haven't paid for this one. Believe it or not, CB Life sent it to me, and you can't get it. I can't get it. But they tell me it'll be under $100. And guess what? It's that $300 one. It allows you to rock this way, that way, if you're on an uneven territory. It can go forward. You see all the notches here on it, so that it can have the bipod in front or behind. You can lock it into position here. Like I say, about $300. CB Life's about $180, something like that. And when it becomes available, not available yet. And then you get that 15% discount when it does become available. So we want that gun steady. If you've watched my videos on accuracy, keep in mind that as you're looking through the scope and the crosshairs are moving up and down, they're moving up and down with your breathing. They even move a little bit with your heart beating. So one of the ways that we can use that to our advantage instead of to the disadvantage is as I'm looking at my target, whether it be a paper round target or a silhouette target or a wild boar, is as this is going up and down with my breathing, I can take in a full breath, and I've learned then, after I've done it a few times, that if I let about a third of my air out, boom, about 4 seconds, don't go any longer. If you do, just start breathing again. And even when you're holding it there, once you get really good at that, watch your heart beating and you'll see this little tick. And you work with, okay, when it ticks, it comes from a ½ inch below the bullseye to the bullseye, and you shoot it then. So watch that video again if you haven't. That's a good one to have before you go hunting. This is pretty important. If you have a 17 caliber and some 22 calibers, you'll have to look close, but a lot of them have a Picatinny rail that's the small size, a 10 millimeter they call it, while larger calibers and firearms have a 20. So good scopes only come in 20s as a typical rule. But this little $10 device, not $10 at CB Life, you get 15% off of that, but notice here, there's your Picatinny rail right there. That's a nice little screw that goes down and keeps it from moving at all or slipping slowly sideways back by tightening that. Even if you don't have a hole, you can just put it down and you've got pressure going down while there's these pressures here on the side. But this is a Picatinny conversion rail for scopes. And if you have the 17 caliber, and God bless 17 calibers and some 22s, you'll want to do that. When you put a scope on, FZ Shoot, I think you can find that in a CB Life catalog. But it's very, very, very important that this gun is balanced. And the best way I can say it again is, if this is the barrel and this is the scope, and the scope can be adjusted up and down and left and right. But what good is that if it's mounted like this or you're holding it like this in error? You need to be holding it like that. And this allows it to be mounted, then we still have to practice. Now, how do we know if we're doing that? Well, these go on the scope, and they can tell you is the scope level or not. Now, something you need to know about scopes. For years and years and years, scopes came, well, it was a small one for like 22s firearms or something, but all the rest were a 1-inch tube. That's that long tube. I think you can see a difference though just looking at these two. This would be the 1-inch. I'm not quite sure. I have to get my magnifying glass out and find out what this one is. They're about the same price, but the tube is very, very important. When you're ordering a scope or get a scope and you're getting mounts, it's very important that you're getting the same size. So look for 1-inch or 30. I think it's 1-inch and then it goes to 30. It's a larger tube, and then it kind of goes up 31, 32, up to 35. Now, if you're shooting 17 and 22s, you'll often find just a single hex head tight mount, and that's good. That's good. If you're getting into 30 caliber and larger, you'll probably, if you look down here at this, you'll see 2 screws, because there's a lot of energy going on when that scope is trying to move left and right. With your big guns like 338 Magnums, etc., which is what I usually have with a bear hunt, I have mounts with 3 screws in them. Let's talk about, since we're talking about scopes, let's talk about binoculars, good binoculars. Now, I had a video on binoculars, but let me make it real easy for you. Most binoculars today are 8x42s. This happens to be a 10x42, and it doesn't really matter about the brand as the quality of the lens. I've had $2,200 binoculars before, and the reason is if you're up all day on a mountain watching the plains for antelope and deer, elk, coyote, wolf, your eyes get tired. And I mean, when eyes are tired, feel like you're going to scratch them, they got red lines in them, they're burnt out. How do we prevent that? Well, that happens with cheap binoculars and cheap scopes. What's a good scope? It isn't so much the brand. This happens to be, again, from CV Life because it was the best price I could find. But you want to look for a scope, and you want to look for, not a scope, but binoculars with BAK 4, BAK 4. That's the best glass there is. There isn't any better glass. So whether you were getting that $2,200 pair of Swarovskis that I had, or I think it's like $100, $90, and then $15 off of that, these were just as good. And also look for the type of lens coverings, because the better binoculars have better lens covers, and that's the way you know about that. And they'll have a better case for the binoculars. Now you want to kind of go to the advanced class. It's right here. Here is night vision binoculars. Now let me just show you something here. They're 10 power, but you get a digital zoom of 8, that's 18 power. And the 1080 high definition is good. You can take a photograph, you can record videos, you can watch at night. And by golly, is that nice. So you look at it at this end right here, and it's a nice, in this example, 3-inch, I think. A lot of them are like 2 inches. There's 3-inch. Here's your buttons. One is to see this 18 power, and then this is your infrared light that lights it up at night. And so you're looking at it like that. like $300, but it was 15% off of $300. And I got to tell you, when you get into night hunting, that's a sweet deal, because quite frankly, that's when most animals are out. They're out at night. You know, I showed you that short Picatinny conversion rail. Well, you can see one very long Picatinny 20mm rail here. And a lot of air guns these days, this is the Avenger, but look at how long that rail is. And you know, you gotta move this scope forward and back, and it's supposed to be 2 inches from your eye. And that's when the gun does whatever it's going to do. Sometimes to get it here, and you're comfortable, and you gotta be comfortable, then we've got to have a scope mounting rail that can go forward and back, because just as this Avenger has a nice long rail, there's some that have a real short rail. Again, this isn't to be a CV Life commercial. It's just I keep getting asked, and I'm not on anybody's salary. People ask me, where are you getting this stuff now? Right now, I'm getting it from CV Life. And here you can see some of these guns don't have a Picatinny rail forward. There's just no place to mount it. So here's one that can be mounted right on the barrel. I think this can be had at CV Life. Here's all kinds of mounts. But this one, when you see these little blocks down here, that's because the gun looks a lot like an M16, an AR-15, and it fits into those little elongated holes. Here's a CV Life sling, but it's interesting. It's not used like you might think. Look at it right here, how it's mounted here. It's mounted through a loop through that buttstock of an assault rifle type of gun. So all kinds. Here's one with easy, can be adjusted of course, but these easy clips can mount to different parts of the gun, and you can carry it under your arm here. If you like those braided wrist, here's a braided scope. There's another scope right here, a scope sling, and you can see it's made with the conventional sling. Let me just make sure. Hollowhead, you're not falling asleep, are you? I want you to stay awake and take notes on all this. Here is something interesting. These go over the silencer on the end of the barrel. They come in camouflage. They come in black. I think they come in just brown. But and they're adjustable based upon Velcro, but they can go around those silencers, making it more and more difficult for critters to see you. You have to kind of just put your own survivor kit together. Very fortunately, my brother did this one for me. Well, maybe I've got to die while I'm trying to get it open. But anyway, inside here is all kinds of goodies. I've long told you that I love a slingshot. Now, for a long time, I carried my competition slingshot because these marbles can quietly go 200-300 yards and make a heck of a racket elsewhere in the woods. and I like to make noise in other places to bring the animals here. I also like, often wild boar are in those thickets, and I want to get them out of there. But this is not the slingshot. It's a Pro Diablo. It's by Barnett. But I found this one here. It's cheap. It's not $10-15. But anyway, it can go into a backpack real easy. It doesn't take a lot of room. And the key, now this one's got nice crystal bars in it with a different color. It has a thing for balance. But notice here, you always bring it right here, just like a bow and arrow. You bring it to this cheekbone. And the key is you always bring it to the same place, because if you start moving it around, who knows where it's going to go. But if you always practice with it at the same place, and for me, it was that cheekbone right there. Okay, what else have we got? I've got an old saying that I'd hate to be a weatherman and then go to church on Sunday. They're off all the time. So my pack always has some different kinds of gloves for different types of weather. Even when the weatherman's correct, I gotta tell you, it's a whole lot different at 6 in the morning than it is at 2 in the afternoon and then right at dusk. So maybe changing. Hopefully you've got all of your range finding done before the animals come, but just in case. My rangefinder is no great size, it's no great weight. You've got to have a first aid kit. I can't even count the number of times. I've had 2 men shoot through the calf of their leg while out in the woods. That's no fun. Now this is something I've always carried. You get them at the Army supply store. I say it looks a lot like a woman's feminine napkin. But I gotta tell you something. This thing goes onto an open wound, and straps wrap around, and they can save a person's life. And I can tell you they have. So you probably want one of these. But then the number of times just people cut themselves. They've got a big Bowie hunting knife out there. I carry something really small with my fingers over it like this. But they cut themselves up. They do all kinds of things. You need a first aid kit. And guess who's the guy, the only guy in camp who has a first aid kit? Okay. Another thing, I don't like to wait until morning. A lot of people say, well, we'll track that animal down in the morning. Well, the morning, guys, the coyotes have eaten it, the wolves have eaten it, critters of all, possums have eaten it, raccoons have eaten it. And I want to find the animal that night. I want it hanging in the barn that night. So here's one of these flashlights. Not very expensive, but it's a I'm not going to shine it right at the camera here, but you can see that it does different colors, and this picks up blood or just shines a light as you're going through the woods at night. $15, $16. I bought this at a sporting goods store. If you're going to be out in some unknown territory and you're going out at 6 in the morning and you're going to come back at 7 or 8 at night, you may want a compass. Have that. You know how helpful duct tape is at home the rest of the year? Yeah. Well, that used to be a full roll, but it gets used up. I'll show you some of these, but this is kind of nice to rest your gun in. Now this is here built, I think it's by Blog. This holds a high caliber heavy gun, and then this camera mount allows you to move it around. Well, that's $200, I think. Here's one I just made up. Found it at a flea market. This was the piece that goes on an all-terrain vehicle. A couple of them hold the rifle. Well, this guy had one. I think he had $10 on it. And I asked him, what does he need? He said, take it. And he just gave it to me. And then I sealed it here on this to hold a gun on a tripod right here. I think, now here is my velocity meter by FX. And this was $150 or something, but I don't know anywhere you can get these any cheaper. Watch for them on eBay or something, but this is what you really need to know the speed of that pellet. That's pretty important to know about rifles, firearms, powder guns. It's even more important to know the speeds. I get a lot of comments about, now which oil or grease or lube did you put on those pellets? I've mentioned motorcycle chain wax. That's the thickest, and that holds, I'm using that when I need to slow a pellet down. You know, some of these 17 calibers are up around 1,500 feet a second. They're not accurate. They go bing and zing off. So what I want is something that's accurate. I got to slow it down. At the other end of the spectrum is silicone. It's not an oil. It's not a grease. It's very thin, very slippery. And when I don't want to slow that pellet or bullet down at all, I'll use silicone. And then I've got 2 or 3 oils in the middle. So somewhere in there, you've got to experiment, and this helps with that. Let's go inside. I'll show you something in there. Okay. I promise you, I'm not on CV Life's payroll, but currently this is where I'm getting a lot of my things. Here's the CV Life, but I want you to see this eye makeup. Now that helps break up the eyes. Anything vertical, since eyes are horizontal, I think helps. Now notice along this top here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but let's just go to rifle scopes. And I didn't want to scare off some of you, particularly if you've got an inexpensive 17 caliber, but here's that night vision, $318. Here's an excellent gun right here. Let me pop it up. For only $61. Now remember, you put Russ 15 and you get 15% off. So it's a 2.5 by 10 by 40 with a laser. That is, I think, a bargain. I saw this, by the way, I saw this at a sporting goods store for about $80. So I think it's a bargain. This is another popular one right here for 17 caliber brake barrels, any kind of a brake barrel. It's a good one. You can see some scopes for $50 and $59 down here, and they're 100 times better than what you got free, if you will. Here's one for $39. Here's a spotting scope for $142. Now, if we go here, there's some hot sale items. I'm not here to spend a lot of time on this website, but you'll see all kinds of special sales that they have going on here. Unfortunately, you're not going to see that 300. It'll be interesting what our price is going to be when it comes out. Here's a nice red dot. It's red and green, and it has the laser too. So it's a laser and a red dot. I think that's interesting, and it's $54 minus our discount. Now here's that backpack. This is a heck of a backpack. Call it $44 minus the 15%. I'm not going to go on all of this. I think 3 or 4 pages down here, and we're not going to look at that. You see it right here. Well, let's just take a look at a couple of things that I think are important. Here's a whole page here of red dots. Real cheap ones up to expensive ones. Here is a variety of bore sights that will help you if you have a firearm. Here's the you get this gun, this bullet. If you have a powder gun, you put it in, and that laser will point you right where that barrel is going. Doesn't help with an air gun, helps with a powder gun. All kinds of bipods here, all kinds of lasers, and here's one for just $14 minus our discount. But there's some really interesting ones here that are newer. This small one right there, and we see it over here too. I think are quite interesting. Let's go on over here. This is all products, and it has everything from A to Z, along with some accessories. And you can see all types of sling mounts, single screw. Here's your various bubbles, balance bubbles, for just $20. Here's your conventional sling mounts. Here's some bore sight adapters. Again, nothing you'd use with air, but you'd use with the regular. Now this is an interesting one right here. This even brings up your scope higher than normal and really helps with the height if your scope needs it. Now here's that converter right there, and it's only $11 minus the 15%. You're going to need that if you're going to get a quality scope on a 17 or 22 that's only 10 millimeter. Here's a number of scope mounts. Here's some for the M16 that can be on the side. Here's that device that you use to level your scope, and $30. I don't like these right here. They don't work as good as the circular ones. I've had some trouble with them. I think this is interesting here too. This is some real nice organizers on the back of your seats. I think that this one here says it's a cantilever scope mount. That means it can be off to the side, if you will. Some hats. They've got a lot of things in here that I haven't personally tried, but they're pretty good. There's a bore cleaner. It really cleans out that barrel, even though air guns have air and not burnt powder. Some hats, more pages down here. So if you get a chance, just make sure you go to CB Life and get our discount. I don't know how much longer they're going to give it to us, but anytime I get a 15% discount, I will. Well, I hope we were of help to you today. If so, give us a thumbs up. If not, give us a thumbs down. If you're not already a subscriber, go ahead and become a subscriber. We'd love to have you. I think we're at 16,200 right now, growing at almost 100 a week. Thank you very much. That's my reward for this thing. We'll talk to you next week.